Skyrush is an Intamin hypercoaster at Hersheypark. For many years, this was a ride that you either loved or hated. There was no in between. Many enthusiasts such as myself praised this ride's raw intensity and out-of-control feeling. This ride's unhinged nature made it unlike any other coaster on the planet. Other enthusiasts and many parkgoers found the experience uncomfortable, primarily due to the lap bars. For the 2024 season, Hersheypark gave Skyrush a massive refurbishment, complete with a new logo, a redesigned station, and most importantly, new restraints. I previously reviewed this coaster back in 2020, but I need to publish an updated review. The restraints changed the experience in a big way, and I'll explain here. Skyrush opened back in 2012. With a price tag of $25 million, it was Hersheypark's most expensive coaster at the time. I love how this ride looks. The colors really pop. You have bright yellow track that contrasts perfectly with the blue trains and supports. The ride's minimally supported lift hill and first drop look amazing on the park's skyline. It looks absolutely massive as it is positioned directly above Comet. And there are so many great places to watch this coaster. You get an incredible view of the first drop from Park Avenue outside the park. Then there is a little used pathway traveling directly underneath the coaster inside the park. This is a must for photographers, and there's so much energy with the coaster flying around you. It truly is impressive Intamin was even able to cram this coaster into this park. For years, Hersheypark had wanted a hypercoaster, but space was an issue. The park was fully developed, and at the time, landlocked. It's worth noting the plot where Candymonium was built in 2020 was not owned by the park at this time. The park had to purchase a golf course and move a road to make that plot usable years down the road. For Skyrush, the park had a small plot of land between Comet and Founders Circle. This would be atop Spring Creek. Several manufacturers no-quoted the hypercoaster project, stating there was not enough room for a ride of that scale. But Intamin rose to the challenge and delivered Skyrush. Whereas most hypercoasters have a long out-and-back layout, Skyrush is an ultra-compact figure 8. This coaster also stays lower to the ground as tight transitions, leading to sharp and powerful forces. This was intended to be the park's marquee attraction for many years to come, but from day one, Skyrush was a polarizing coaster. Many called it one of the world's most intense coasters, myself included. The combination of sustained ejector airtime, crushing positive Gs, and violent laterals was world-class. For me at least, these forces were augmented by the restraints. Most elements felt like they'd eject you from the train. The seats had minimal lateral bracing, and the lap bars are just a thin point of contact in your thighs. This exposed riding position is what made the coaster so unique, terrifying, and addictive. Others were in agony from the restraints. The thin lap bar concentrated the ride's forces to one specific point in your thighs. The ride's high positive Gs would cause the restraints to come down even further as the coaster progressed. And then there was no give. This led to increased discomfort. Some said it felt like Skyrush was trying to rip their legs off. Now I will admit the old restraints were uncomfortable. Even staunch Skyrush fans will admit they were super tight, but I personally never thought they crossed the threshold into pain. Unless I stayed on the train without getting off, my thighs had time to recover with no adverse effects, and I was willing to deal with the restraints to get a ride that crazy. Hersheypark immediately realized they had a problem though. To provide guests with relief, they reprogrammed the final brake run. Immediately after the second train parks outside the station, the lap bars raise a few inches. This takes the pressure off your thighs while you wait for the preceding train to be dispatched. But this did not fix the experience during the main layout. After the 2023 season, Hersheypark removed the seats from the train's chassis. And for the 2024 season, Hersheypark reopened with all new seats and restraints in Skyrush, promising an enhanced experience. If you have ridden Intamin's newer thrill coasters, these seats and restraints will look familiar. They are similar to what was used on rides like Islands of Adventure's Velocicoaster and Parque Warner Madrid's Batman Gotham City Escape. The seat is more of a bucket with raised sides. This better stabilizes your back during moments of high lateral Gs. Then the new overhead lap bars are much more ergonomic. For one, they actually sit on your lap. They have a larger surface, contouring over your thighs and waist. Compare that to the old Restraints that have a very thin bar pressed into a small part of your thighs. This more evenly distributes the ride's forces. In past years, I would always hear multiple guests complaining about the Restraints once the train hit the brake run. Last week, I did not hear a single person say they were in pain, and I rode Skyrush 20 times over the course of a few days, so the Restraints have absolutely improved rider comfort. This does come at a cost though, if you enjoyed the old experience. It doesn't feel as out of control. With the old Restraints, I felt like I would die in the best way possible. The old seats were not bucketed, so your body could easily be ragdolled. Combined with the low sides, your upper body would be folded over the edge of the train. It felt like you'd be slam dunked into the creek. These were some of the most aggressive laterals of any coaster. I genuinely feared raising my hands on old Skyrush because my body would be flung uncontrollably. The track did not change, so the coaster still has laterals, but the seats better catch and support your body, so the sideways motion is not quite as exaggerated. The airtime is not as extreme. The negative Gs are just as potent, but you experience them differently. The old Restraints stopped before your lap, so even when you were stapled, your butt would still physically lift into the air. It always felt like I'd be extracted from the train because of how the lap bars clamped against my body. The new Restraints more firmly lock your thighs and waist in place, so you don't get the same vertical lift. The airtime you experience now feels more conventional. Although there is one key change from the other new generation Intamin roller coasters. On those rides, the lap bar can still lift slightly after it's locked. This makes it easier to feel and experience airtime. Skyrush's Restraints do not do this. They are rigid and have no upward give, but they will still lower throughout the coaster due to the positive Gs. While the tightness does negatively impact the airtime for me, the ride always remains perfectly comfortable. The Restraints more widely distribute the forces over your thighs, so for those who hated Skyrush before, you likely will find the airtime far more enjoyable. That is why I think these changes are objectively an upgrade. Skyrush is now more universally liked by park guests. Basically, if you found the old Restraints painful, there's a good chance you'll now like the coaster. For those who loved the old Skyrush, you'll probably still like the coaster, but there is a good chance you'll like it a bit less. That was my feeling and the consensus of other enthusiasts I spoke with. The seat change makes the forces feel more straightforward. The airtime and laterals are still excellent. They just don't have that raw sense of danger anymore because you're more locked in. I would have preferred the coaster get Restraints like Flying Aces of Ferrari World in Abu Dhabi. This is Skyrush's sister coaster. The trains have just as little lateral bracing, and the lap bars also thinly rest in your thighs, but the underside was contoured as opposed to being a flat bar, so you have the out of control and superior comfort together. Although I will admit the newer Intamin Restraints are even more comfortable, so I'm not surprised this is what Intamin and Hersheypark picked. Another positive is that Skyrush has returned to consistent two-train operations in 2024. Last year, the ride was often running just one train due to some mechanical issues. With two trains, Skyrush is one of the better capacities in the park for coasters. Each train holds up to 32 guests, as there are 8 rows of 4. The ride usually has one of the park's more efficient crews. They check the Restraints at a good clip. They often have the next train ready to go shortly after the prior one parks in the final brake run. The one thing that slows them down is the station setup. This ride butts right up against Comet. Due to space constraints, you enter and exit on the same side. I wish the park was able to rig an exit staircase on the opposite side from which you load. Either the park has to wait for the prior riders to reach the exit platform, or they have a logjam of guests boarding and exiting simultaneously. Either way, things do slow down a bit. The loose article bins are convenient at least. They are right next to the air gates, adjacent to the train. Although if you remember this ride's opening year, the coaster had these rotating bins for each train. In theory, this was a good idea, but they never worked and caused more confusion. Alternatively, you can store your belongings in complimentary lockers. These are located across from the ride's entrance. This is not a ride where you want anything loose in your pockets. The forces in this ride are no joke. If you want to ride Skyrush with a short wait, I recommend heading there from the mid-afternoon onwards. I have often found this coaster with no more than a 10 to 15 minute wait, even on busier days. And I've even been able to marathon this coaster at night without even getting off the train. The ride is also usually a walk-on during Sweet Start's early entry due to the low number of guests who have that perk. But once the park officially opens, many people head to Skyrush early in the day. The late afternoon, early morning is when Skyrush sees its highest demand. On busy days, the queue can hover around the hour mark. One important touring note: Skyrush does not operate in any form of rain. Hershey does this for guest comfort. Not a fan of this rationale, but regardless, you need to plan accordingly if you're visiting on a day with precipitation. You do not want to miss this ride. A majority of the queue is pretty dull, as you have these long switchbacks without anything to look at. The final part of the queue is a staircase up to the station. Be very careful when you reach those stairs. There are 2 lanes, one on the left for the very front row, and one on the right for every other row. The front row queue can hold a lot of people. Only 4 guests will be admitted per train, as opposed to 24 from the right staircase. I never wait for the front for 2 reasons. 1, 99% of the time, it is longer than any other row by a considerable margin. If you want the front, I only recommend waiting for it if you don't see the line creeping onto the stairs. 2, Skyrush is a far superior experience in the rear rows. This coaster is one of the craziest drops in the world. You need to be in the back 2 rows to experience it in full. Another important seating consideration: Skyrush is a pseudo-wing coaster. Each row has 2 seats in the middle raised above the floor. Then there are 2 seats hanging off the edge. This is where you want to ride Skyrush. 1, you are way more exposed. 2, the lateral forces are way more pronounced because you're further from the center line. I prefer the left wing to the right wing because there's an extra moment of strong laterals. On most coasters, guests board in sequential order. With Skyrush, the first 2 guests often claim the wing seats, and I do not blame them one bit. I do the exact same thing because they offer a far wilder experience. Once checked, you are treated to the other upgrade that Skyrush got in 2024. The ride was given an airplane stylization. When a train dispatches, you hear that Flight 2012 is ready for takeoff. That is an ode to the ride's opening year. You then have flashing lights and hear the sound of a plane engine revving. This builds anticipation both on and off ride. You are then rapidly pulled atop the lift hill by a cable. This is one of the steepest and fastest lift hills of any coaster. It's an element in itself. The acceleration actually causes a smidge of positive G's at the base. Then you are pulled atop the 200-foot or 61-meter tall lift hill in just a few seconds. And believe it or not, this lift hill used to be even faster in its inaugural year. The park slowed it down slightly in an attempt to reduce the thigh-crushing experience, but that had minimal effect. This leads directly into the first drop, which is absolutely epic. It is a large and nearly vertical plunge, as it reaches a max angle of descent of 85 degrees. You get nice floater in the front rows, but the airtime is incredible in the back 2 rows. You get a very strong burst of ejector airtime over the crest. That alone would make it noteworthy, but halfway down, something happens. While you're still levitating, there's a second jolt of even stronger airtime. It feels like you're being abruptly springboarded forwards. This kink feels completely unnatural. but I love it. It is demented in a good way. I have watched this drop countless times from various different angles, and I still cannot figure out the physics behind the drop. The drop caught me by surprise at my initial rides, and it has continued to take my breath away on re-rides. There's no other drop out there quite like this one. The pullout directly contrasts that with intense positive forces. It's a super tight valley that pulls 5 Gs. I always gray out here, and it will be the same for most riders. Now unfortunately, the forces will also staple the restraint firmly against your thighs if the operator didn't do that already. This has been the same in all iterations of Skyrush. It just isn't painful with the updated restraints. But it will restrict your airtime room for subsequent elements. I also need to note that this valley is a noticeable shuffle. In general, Skyrush tracks fairly well, but the train will shake during moments with high positive Gs, particularly if you're on the wing seats. But it's not enough to cause any lingering discomfort or a headache, for me at least. This pullout twists you upwards and to the right, leading to a large camelback. This offers very strong and sustained ejector airtime throughout the entire train. It's plentiful in all rows, but I think it has a bit more power in the rear rows. Next is a low leftward turn. This has great speed as you're banked alongside the water, and it's also the best spot on the ride for positive Gs. While the magnitude is greater on the pullout after the first drop, the Gs here are still strong and far more sustained. This causes an even stronger gray out for me. My vision is often blurry until I crest the following hill. In a way, this reminds me of the first turn in Intimidator 305, just smaller in scale. It is worth noting this turn probably is the shakiest moment on the ride, so you may want to brace yourself here. The subsequent camelback has ejector airtime similar in strength and duration to the prior hill, but the moment is further accentuated by a terrifying near miss. This hill is cleverly positioned just below the first camelback, so it feels like you'll be decapitated. Next is a low rightward turn. This also offers good positive Gs, but not nearly as strong as the first 2 pullouts. This is the first transition on the ride that doesn't cause me to lose my vision. That makes the visual of skimming alongside the water even cooler this time around. Now it's time for the barrage of laterals. Skyrush treats riders to a Stengel dive. This element sharply banks riders left before rapidly rotating them right. If you're in the back wing seats, it feels like the floor drops out from underneath you. You are forcibly thrown horizontally from the train. The laterals are not quite as potent towards the front and on the inside seats, but they're still solid. Afterwards, you rise upwards, and this leads directly into a right turn. The entry is underbanked, leading to a great lateral jolt on the left half of the train. They're strongest in the front row, and if you're on the wing seats. If you're on the right half of the train, the laterals are minimal. This is the main reason I prefer to sit on the left. The turn itself then has solid Gs and maintains the speed. Then comes an S-hill. The directional change offers the final spot of laterals. They're decent in the front wing seats, but they're great if you're in the rear wing seats. It's another moment where you're forcibly thrown sideways. Now these 3 elements used to have pronounced pops of airtime with the old restraints, but it is harder to feel those negative Gs with the current restraints because of how you're clamped in. Next is the final spot of airtime on the ride. It offers another instance of strong and sustained ejector airtime, no matter where you're sitting. It again has a bit more oomph further back in the train though. For all intents and purposes, Skyrush at this point is over. You twist upwards and to the left, leaving the creek. At this point, Skyrush has bled off a ton of speed and has barely enough momentum to make it back to the station. You meekly coast past Comet and Founder's Circle. I wish Intamin could have thrown in a barrel roll here to spice things up, as they did with Flying Aces at the end. But maybe that's just me getting greedy, because the prior 40 seconds are intense and action-packed. The pacing is pretty much flawless until this point. You then hit a set of brakes, slowing the train way down. You then traverse a 180-degree turn above Comet Station and hit the final brake run. As you park on this brake run, a few interesting things happen. First, you have some audio playing of a plane skidding to a stop. Second, once you do come to a full stop, the restraints still briefly unlock and raise a few inches into the air. This isn't necessary with the new restraints, but it's a fun quirk left over from the ride's original programming. Once the train ahead of you is dispatched, you head into the station simultaneously thanks to multi-move. As you come to a stop, you'll hear the double ding sound from an airplane, signifying it's safe to remove your seatbelt. This ends the 3,600 foot or 1,100 meter long coaster. That is on the shorter side for a hypercoaster. Most rides of this scale pack in another 1,000 to 2,000 feet of track. I do wish it had another element or two towards the end, but the overall length feels satisfactory to me compared to your average coaster. One final thing I do want to note is the new logo. The new one has bolder colors, but I personally preferred the old one. It was more dynamic as it had both the ride's text and track warped around it like an atomic structure. I wish the park took the text of the new one and placed it on the design of the old logo. So what would I rate the current version of Skyrush? I would give this coaster a 9 out of 10 in most rows, but it's probably closer to a 9.5 out of 10 if you're in those back wing seats. This is still an intense coaster. The first drop is truly one of a kind. That Airtime kink in the back row is incredible. Then the layout has 3 additional hills with powerful and sustained ejector airtime, valleys and turns with crushing positive Gs, and some strong laterals if you're on the wing seats. And the pacing during the main layout is flawless. There is not any dead space until you climb out of the creek. The cons are a short length relative to other hypers, and some shaking during the turns. The old version could mask these issues and was worthy of a perfect 10 out of 10. This is because the restraints made it feel so unique. It was one of the most thrilling experiences on the planet. No other ride was quite like it. With the 2024 changes, the forces feel more in line with Intamin's other hypers. That's still wild, but not quite as otherworldly as before. While the restraint change personally made the coaster a bit worse for me, it was the right thing to do. The coaster is now objectively better for a majority of guests. People no longer find this coaster uncomfortable or painful, and I still find the coaster excellent. It just is not as unhinged as it used to be. It no longer will compete for a spot in my top 10 steel coasters, and I actually think Wildcat's Revenge is now the best coaster at Hersheypark. But Skyrush is firmly in the top 2 spots in the park, and it's a ride I'll still happily ride a ton. So those are my thoughts on Skyrush at Hersheypark. What are your thoughts about this ride? Let me know what you think about the changes in 2024. Do you like the new restraints? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this review, I would appreciate it if you gave this video a like, and you consider subscribing, because there'll be a lot more roller coaster amusement park videos here at Canopy Coaster. Thanks for watching.